Money is a tool. Financial literacy is a skill you can learn. My name is Dave Gallegos. I've spent the last 25 years in the mortgage industry with a front row seat to American financial habits. And what I have to offer is so much more than about mortgages. So join me for a journey into financial literacy, brought to you by me and Zenith Home Loans. I'm your host, Dave Gallegos. Hi, everyone. We're back for episode number 4 of More Than Mortgages. So last week we talked about the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, and I shared with everybody why I think this is such an impactful book and some of the basic principles that are in it. Before we get into the subject, because this will be something that I delve into in further episodes, we'll talk about how to take advantage of the principles that are in that book, along with other principles that I've learned. But today I want to talk about some strategies, some simple strategies that you can take right now when it comes to your current personal financial situation and ways that you can address this. So I'll take a little bit of a backstory. So my daughter, who is a loan officer that works here at our company, has worked here now for 16 years. When she was a renter, when she was still living with us and she was working here, I'm going to embarrass her now. I know how much money she was making. And she made a comment, something to the effect of that she didn't think she was ever going to be able to buy a house. And I have my son, who was also working here, doesn't work here anymore, at one time before he became a homeowner. And he told me the same thing. He's like, yeah, I don't know how I'm ever going to be able to buy a house. And in both situations, I knew how much money they were making, and I knew that they could buy a house. What I challenged both of them to do, and at the time, I don't even know if they know this, at the time, I had access to their spending because they were attached to our bank online, and I could see what they were spending their money on every month. I just did the work myself. I went and I looked what they were spending their money on, and they were blowing money. Mostly on stupid things like just eating out and hanging out with their friends in bars and having a good time. And they were in their 20s, it was after college. They really hadn't gotten their stuff together when it came to their careers yet. I didn't even know if they were even going to continue to work here. My son doesn't anymore. My daughter still does. But what I challenged both of them to do was to download the last 90 days of their spending and categorize everything of where they're spending their money in their checking account, and then to take whatever credit cards they were using, because at the time I wasn't that invested in their personal finances. And if they had credit card balances, I'm like, you need to go look at your credit card statements and see what you're spending your money on, because that's where people get themselves into trouble. They use their credit cards to live their daily lives, like go out to the bar with their friends, and they're not able to pay that off at the end of the month. That's crazy. They're like, oh, I'll make that pound. That's how everybody gets themselves in trouble, is they don't pay attention to that stuff. They don't establish a philosophy that says, I don't want to have any consumer debt. Anyway, both times they both woke up right away and they said, wow, I waste a lot of money. And so I think that's what's different today. A lot of people get tired of hearing I'm a boomer, right? I was born in 1960. Younger people today get tired of hearing boomers talk about how they bought houses when interest rates were in the 15%. And they always go like, yeah, well, houses cost a lot less then. And my response to, yeah, houses did cost a lot less. My first house was $97,000 in 1986. Interest rate was 8%, 7-8%, something like that. So about where it is right now, where we find ourselves, we're in the 7s in December of 2023 as I record this. But yeah, the house was $97,000. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home with a 2-car garage. It was a brand new home, but it was like bare bones. I was making $36,000 a year when I got that house. $36,000. I was married and I had 2 kids, and my wife didn't have a job. Lori wasn't working then. And so people say, well, yeah, it was a lot cheaper. It's like, yeah, but I was making a lot less. Here's what else was going on back then, is that we didn't have the ability to spend money on things the way I think younger people today and really all people today have the ability to spend money on things, because there was no, I'm not saying that all the things that people are spending money on today aren't important or aren't meaningful. It's just that we just didn't have the ability to spend money on those things. We weren't getting it. There was no cell phone, right? There was no mobile phone. That wasn't a thing. It was just a phone on your wall. That was, I don't know how much phone bills back in the day. I just remember long distance phone calls cost a lot of money. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have Now, cable TV was available, but I didn't have cable TV. I couldn't afford cable. We'd strung an antenna in the attic of our brand new house and ran the wire down to the TV so that we had decent television coverage and 4 channels. Cable TV was out there, it just wasn't as advanced as it is today. But I didn't have any $100 or $200 or $300, entertainment packages. I didn't have multiple streaming services available. I didn't have home computers. I don't know how many computers I have in my house today. Our mobile phones have become this necessity that the mobile phone companies have got us convinced that we need to get the newest and greatest every year. And they're addicting us to this tool, and it's how they get paid. It's how they make money. And then all the apps and all of the music and all of the things. So it's a great tool, but it's a tool, and it's become a very expensive tool for us to use. The other thing that I've noticed is that our dining options have multiplied dramatically from when my wife and I first got married. Going out to eat was like a luxury event, and it seems like going out to eat now is much more common and much more accepted way to socialize and spend money. And I love to go out to eat as much as the next guy. I'm actually going out to eat after I shoot this episode today. But it seems like we approached this spending approach differently when I was younger, when I was getting ready to buy my first house. We didn't have a car payment. We had 2 beaters, and one was a Toyota Corolla that was tilted to the side. So we bought that house in 1986 for $97,000. It didn't have a front yard. It didn't have a fence. It didn't have a backyard. I had to put all of that in. I mean, it wasn't landscaped when I closed on the house. Didn't come with drapes. We didn't have any window coverings. We didn't have money for window coverings. We hung sheets, right? And we ordered blinds. That was one of the first things that we did, was we ordered blinds. I remember I was freaking out about how much the blinds cost, right? We didn't have new furniture. We didn't like deck the house out in all the furniture. We didn't have fitness equipment. I wasn't driving a new car. I didn't have a car payment. I didn't have, because insurance, and I had a wife and I had 2 kids, and my wife just wanted a home because and that's the beauty of it, is that I wanted to get a home for my family. And it was the proudest day of my life, as up to that point, was being able to get a home for my wife and my kids. It made me feel great as a husband and a father. But we weren't spending money then the way we spend money, the way I see people spend money and people's spending habits today. Vacations were like, we didn't take vacations. I laugh about it now. And again, you're going to listen to this and you're going to say, oh, that's a boomer talking. It's like, we didn't do 4-day bachelor parties. We did 4-hour bachelor parties. We didn't go away with our buddies for a weekend golf trip somewhere. We didn't fly anywhere, certainly. And today, that's what I hear people doing. And I was like, what are you doing now? I hear people take baby moons that are getting ready to have children. They have to take a trip before the baby's born. It's like, and that's wonderful that you have the resources to do it. I hear people take exotic trips to locations around the world, and I applaud that. I'm not saying that you should or you shouldn't do that. My question is, when you say that when I hear from those people in that community that it's so much more expensive today, everything is so much more expensive today. Well, I'm like, well, yeah, all of that stuff's expensive. But I think what's gotten us in trouble isn't that everything's more expensive. It's that we just want everything now, and we don't want to have to sacrifice for anything, because everything's instantly bingeable, instantly available, and we want it now. And it's part of our culture that the world has changed. We can get the answer to anything at my phone. We get the answer to anything in a second on this, and we want that all the time for ourselves. I think those are the expectations that have created a lot of the financial challenges that most of us have. So think about that stuff. And the challenge that I gave to my kids was, I said, look, just go tell me what you're spending your money on for the last 90 days. Just go tell me exactly what it is. Categorize everything. Don't just do 30, go 90 days. And you can download your spending in your checking account onto a spreadsheet, but you got to do the work. Like, download it. Don't just look at it, but like actually download it. Call groceries, groceries. Call dining. Call liquor. Call, the gym membership. And actually, the best thing that you're going to do is you're going to maybe for the first time in a long time, look at where all your money's going. Anytime I've had someone do this. It's shocking. Anytime I've had somebody do this. I had a guy working for me, a good buddy, Mike Cazell. If you're listening, you're making the podcast. Mike was in shock at the hundreds of dollars a month he was spending at Chipotle. And so I think that's what happens, is that you just get into a habit where you eat out constantly. Eating out is like one of the most expensive endeavors that we all have. And it's become a necessity. It's it's not a luxury anymore. It's a necessity. And somebody once told me that a luxury once experienced becomes a necessity. And a good example of that is, and this is going to sound dumb, but air conditioning in cars when I was a kid, that wasn't a given. Every car didn't have air conditioning. You can't buy a car today without air conditioning, right? So every car has air conditioning. Cars are 80 grand. Cars are 50. Like, I don't think you can buy a car for less than 40 or 50 grand, can you? And every car has air conditioning. Back in the day, you didn't, some cars didn't have air conditioning. It wasn't that big a deal. I can tell you that Toyota Corolla I was driving when I bought my first house in 1986 didn't have air conditioning. It didn't have power or anything. Like, the windows were cranked. It tilted, and I have a picture of that car like tilted to one side in the driveway of our brand new house when we first moved in. Download the spending and categorize what you're spending it on. I guarantee it's a wake-up call. I guarantee you that the first thing you're going to recognize is that you're spending money that you didn't realize you were spending. You've probably been subscribed to streaming services and subscription services for different businesses and different services that you're rarely, if ever, using. And you might find that you're paying for things you didn't realize you were even paying. Most people are terrible at knowing exactly what this is. So download all your spending and categorize it and just figure out where your money's going. That's the first step. And then create a balance sheet for yourself, or a financial statement. Really take a look at what is your current net worth. You can, if you Google net worth statements or something like that, you can find any number of Excel spreadsheet templates that'll do this for you, where you're going to keep track of what are your assets. And I mean financial assets. I'm not talking, if you have a car and you owe money on your car, you don't have an asset. You just have a debt, and that car is losing value every single month. And so you just, I mean, you can count it if you want that it's equal to the balance that you owe, but if you didn't put any money down on your car, it's a negative net worth item. If you want, and do it right, go find out what the Kelley Blue Book trade-in value is, or the used car value if you were to sell it, and use that number for your car. If you're a homeowner, then you're probably in pretty good shape, because with your net worth, you better be, right? You better have a positive net worth. And if you don't, you don't. You got to start somewhere. And the first step is awareness, figuring out exactly where you stand today. So you do that net worth statement, you categorize all your assets and all your liabilities. Like, the liabilities would be any debt that you currently have outstanding on anything and everything. The difference between your assets and your liabilities is your net worth. That's the number. And the number's the number. What will happen is, as soon as you know the number, you can start to improve the number. If you don't know the number, you can't do anything about it. And if you're waking up every single month and feeling like you're not getting ahead and you're just existing, that's the reason why, is that you haven't made any concerted effort in improving it. So the two things that I want to challenge you to do that will make a difference for you is, first, analyze your spending. And then the second thing is to create your net worth statement. Those two acts by themselves will get you into a different position to where you can begin to address the challenges that are ahead of you. I'm going to go back to what it said in the foreword to The Richest Man in Babylon. Our prosperity as a nation depends upon the personal financial prosperity of each one of us as individuals. If you're a family, if you're the head of a family, or you're the husband and wife, and you're listening to this, the prosperity of your family is dependent upon the prosperity of you as individuals. And it's your future, and it's your kids' futures, and it matters, and it's really important. And I get what it's like to not have financial peace, because I've had that in my life, where I didn't have financial stability, I didn't have financial security, I didn't have financial peace, and it's awful. And I've had bad credit, I've had bad finances, I didn't want to talk about it, I didn't want to share it, And I don't want that for anybody who's listening to this. I promised you that I'm going to share strategies and tactics over these podcast episodes that are going to improve your finances. And that's what I want for everybody listening. So that's it, everyone. Thanks a lot for listening. See you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to More Than Mortgage with Dave Gallegos, brought to you by Zenith Home Loans. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe anywhere you find podcasts and share this episode with a colleague who would also find value.